Hi, this is Bill Raymond, and welcome to my next video in creating a Docker image for AI and machine learning. In this video, we're going to focus on getting our Docker image running for real this time. So far, we've created the template, but we haven't actually created any Python code, so let's do that in this video. Now, we're not going to do anything significant here. I just want to walk you through the process of how you can do this. So let's get started. I am going to use the Git and GitHub repository that I just created in the previous video. Now, if you do not want to use the Git and GitHub functionality, copy this My AI Docker image folder, paste it, and rename it to My New AI Project. In Visual Studio Code, we'll do our Command-Shift-P or Control-Shift-P and do Open Folder in Container and press Return. And then we'll select My New AI Project and open it there. And once again, if you opted to choose the non-Git version, then you won't have this .gitignore or this README file. So you can just ignore those for the moment. I promised you a machine learning and AI template. Now, code can change over time. Tools can change over time. So I am going to use some code in just a moment that allows you to actually try it out for yourself. However, just in case the technology has changed when you're watching the video, I'm going to show you the bare minimum first. So I'm going to come over here to the Explorer and create a new file. And I'm going to call that app.py, and that's a Python file. And we're just going to do something basic. We're going to type print, and then in parentheses and in double quotes, hello world, and save that file. Now, I'm going to go ahead and run this code. How do I run the code? Well, there's a whole bunch of ways. What I think you'll find is there's two methods that are the easiest to do. One is to press the F5 key, which on a Mac might also be function F5. So you'll have to decide whether or not you need to use that or not. Okay, I'm going to press that. And the very first thing that comes up is it says, what do you want to run? It's a Python file. So I'll go ahead and select that. And as you can see, the code runs and we get hello world in the terminal window. I could have just as easily come over here in Visual Studio Code to the run and debug icon and then selected run and debug. And you can see that did the same exact thing. It typed hello world on the screen. I'm going to go back to the Explorer. I'm going to kill this terminal window with a trash can. And then I want to point out one other place where I can run my code. You can see there's an icon, play icon here at the top right for me. If you just click that run button, it will also put it there. Now I'm going to kill that terminal window once more and then reopen up the terminal window with my control backtick, my control tilde. If I type Python 3 space app.py, you can see I can just run the code, and that might be something that you would normally do if you weren't using this Docker image. So that's good. We're all set here. And now I'm going to kill this terminal window and also close down this app.py file. First, let's create a machine learning Python file. So I'll just click new file and I will type mltest.py. and press return. What I'm going to do is paste in a bunch of code here. Now, if you would like to follow along and copy and paste this code, you can. I provide this code in the description, and it's provided also by Google, and it's sort of their hello world example. The idea here is that we are going to import a number of different tools for machine learning and AI, Tensorflow, Numpy, and we're also going to use Keras. And then you'll see that we will create a model and we're going to define some X and Y data. Then we're going to ask the model to predict that if we provide a new input for X, what will the likely value of Y be? So that's what this code does. And I'll just scroll up for a moment if you want to pause the screen, if you happen to want to just sort of type this. Okay. Now I'm going to save the file and run it. So I'll come over here to the run icon. This is the one that I showed you before that's near the tab. And I'll go ahead and press run. And you can see it just did 500 epochs and it came up with a prediction value of 31.006 something. Now, this is a prediction model. If you happen to have typed the code along with me, your number might be different. My number might be different every time I run the code because it's just defining a probability. Okay, so that's how we run a Python file. Now I'm going to close this and kill the terminal window. Now let's create a Python notebook. So I'll go ahead again and choose New File and type ml-test.ipynb. That stands for Python Notebook, and press Return. This time we get a very different user interface. Now we actually have code set up here where it's asking for me to enter some Python code. You'll also notice that there's some menus over here that say Code, Markdown, Run, Outline, and things like that. If you're familiar with notebooks, Python notebooks, then this is going to be very familiar for you, and you can actually use Visual Studio Code instead of using the Python notebooks and Jupyter Lab's web user interface. But don't worry, if you want to use that web user interface, I've got you covered. We're going to cover that in a little bit. Okay, this time I'm going to do that same exact thing where I import those values. But notice that there's some code that I can run here. There's a little run icon just right here. I can just execute the cell, or I can run everything in the notebook. That's what that run all is. So if I just run this cell, you'll notice that I get this, what do you want to use? Python request again. Because now that we're in a notebook, it's a different request. So I'm going to choose Python 3.11.5 for me, and it's whatever version you installed. And there, you can see that it just ran those import commands. There's no output because it doesn't have anything to output. But maybe I want to add a little bit of markdown above here. So if I hover over the cell, you'll notice that it says code and markdown. If I hover down towards the bottom, I could add code or markdown below. So I'm going to hover over the top and add a little markdown. I'm going to select some markdown that's on my clipboard here and paste that in. And you can see that's some markdown. If I want to make this markdown visible, I press Control Enter or Control Return on my keyboard. And there you can see there's that markdown. If I want to edit it, I double click in there and you can see there is the detail. So I'll press Control Return again, and there we've got that code. And now I can continue down. I can add more markdown. Let's go ahead and create a section for model preparedness now. You can see there's that layout that we have. I'll add some code and press Control Return, and that will run it. We'll get all those predictions now. And then I'll come back down here and add some more markdown. And there we have model prediction. And I'll press Control Return. And then finally, I'll add my last bit of code here and press Control Return. And you can see now we have the prediction. Okay. I know this is a lot. If you're not familiar with Jupyter Notebooks, we went through a lot. But basically, the idea with a notebook is that we can put markdown and code together, and everything can run nicely together. It's kind of a way of documenting things. If I want to run all of this again, I can press Run All, and it will rerun everything once again, and I'll get my prediction. I can press Clear All Outputs. You can see all that code that ran. There's that prediction. It's not there anymore. And then when I run it again, you'll see there's all of our epochs that we ran, and then we get to that prediction. Okay, so if you're familiar with Python notebooks again, this should be fairly familiar to you. I'm going to save this file and close it. Now, I mentioned that you can still run Jupyter Notebooks and Jupyter Lab in a browser. So I'm going to show you how to do that now. First, we'll start with Jupyter Notebooks. I'm going to go into Visual Studio Code and do my control backtick, my control tilde to open the terminal. And I'm going to type Jupyter space notebook. And before we press return, we're going to do another space and type --allow-root. Now, what is this all about? Well, when we create a Docker image, very frequently, everything uses what's called the root user. And that root user has a lot of power. But since we're self-contained in the Docker image, we're not going to worry about that for this particular exercise. Instead, we're just going to say, it's fine, Jupyter, if you want to run using that root user. So I'll press return. And once I do that, you'll see that there's two URLs it creates. One that says localhost and another one that says 127.0.0.1. Yours might be different based on how you've configured your computer, but find one of those and you'll either command select or control select that link. I'm going to command select because I'm on a Mac. And there, now I'm running Jupyter Notebooks. And you can see I can go ahead and open up this notebook. I'm going to open up our ML test by double selecting it. And you can see there's everything that we did. And let me just do this. I'm going to just come over here where it says this model will accept X and Y coordinates. I'm going to click the little icon here that will add code or markdown below. And I'll type print and in parentheses and double quotes, hello world. And I'll press control return and there. And I can save the file just by clicking the save icon or going to file, save notebook. So whichever is useful for you. Now, if I want to get to Jupyter Labs, I can just go ahead and go to the view menu and choose open Jupyter Lab. And now you can see you have this sort of more advanced user interface where you have the files that you can browse over here. And I can even select this new folder icon, or I could even go to File, New, and create a new notebook here. And we'll make sure we use that kernel. We can select the other environment we set up for that test, but I'll just create a new one, select that, and I will just type print. And then in our parentheses and quotes, hello from Jupyter Lab. And I will run that. There we go. I pressed the run button a few too many times there. It says hello from Jupyter Lab. So we're all set. And I'll just go ahead and save this file and it will ask me to name it. So I'll just call this test lab, labs.ipymb and rename. When I'm done, I can just come over here to the file menu and choose shut down and then shut down. And everything will be shut down actually. So you can actually just close your browser at this point. Notice that when I come back to Visual Studio Code, you can see that the terminal window is just showing a empty line there. It's kind of just not showing anything. So you can tell that I already quit. So I'm going to kill this terminal window, but I do want to show you one more thing. I launched the notebook and then we went to Jupyter Lab. But if you just like the Jupyter Lab user interface better, do control backtick, control tilde again. And this time type Jupyter space lab space dash dash allow dash root and press return. Once again, you can command or control click on the URL that works for you. And there, you're just running in Jupyter Lab. And Jupyter Lab is this kind of, if you will, the more modern version of Jupyter Notebooks. So you might want to just use that example that I showed you moving forward. I can also kill Jupyter Lab simply by coming over here to the trash icon in Visual Studio Code, and that will do the same exact thing as file shutdown if you are in Jupyter Labs. The last thing we're going to do in this video is optional because I'm going to commit the Git changes and make sure that I sync that with our GitHub repo where we originally created this folder. In Visual Studio Code, type Command-Shift-P or Control-Shift-P and type commit all and press return. And now I'm going to type tested Docker image and press return. There, I've made all the changes and I've committed them, but I only did that on my computer. Now what I want to do is sync them up to the cloud onto GitHub. I'm going to type Command-Shift-P or Control-Shift-P and I'll type the word sync. And git sync rebase is what we're looking for. So you can type whatever keywords that you need there. And you might be wondering what's git sync versus git sync rebase. Well, you're going to have to read up on that. This is what I use. Other people might use something different. If you do, use your option. So I'm going to choose git sync rebase and press return. It's going to inform me that it's going to push this up to GitHub. I'll select OK, and it's done. So let's just give a quick check over in GitHub, shall we, just to make sure this all worked. There, I went to GitHub and I navigated to the My New AI Project repo, and I can see here are all those new files that I created on my local computer. So they are synchronized. That's great. So not only do I have a template that I can create in GitHub, but I can bring that down once I create a repo from it, and then I can make my changes and keep that synchronized as well. Thank you for watching this video. If you want more like this, please like, comment, and click the bell to support my channel.